I returned home for a quiet summer, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. The moment I opened that door, I stepped into a version of my life I never saw coming. A familiar house, yes, but something had changed. Or maybe I had. What began as an innocent embrace turned into something I still can't quite explain. A single touch, a lingering glance, and suddenly, the lines between comfort and temptation started to blur. I never imagined I'd feel that way about him. But what do you do when the one who fills your emptiness is the one you should have never looked at that way? My name is Ava. I am 21 years old, and this story unfolds during the summer when I returned home for a vacation from my studies in California. It was one of those impulsive notions that struck out of nowhere. I pondered the idea of surprising my parents. The thrill of my unannounced arrival filled me with an exhilarating sense of anticipation. As I pulled my suitcase along the well-trodden paths of my quaint Midwestern hometown, anticipation bubbled within me at the thought of witnessing their reactions. Yet, as I swung open the front door, anticipating warm embraces and astonished expressions from my parents, I was met with an unsettling quiet. They had not yet returned to their abode. Just as disappointment began to settle in, a familiar voice rang out, calling my name. It was Noah, my younger sibling, who had recently celebrated his 18th birthday. He stood above me now, his wide smile capable of illuminating any space. "Noah," I said, letting my bags fall to the ground as we embraced. It was a simple, effortless exchange, yet I couldn't shake the observation of how mature he appeared. Once Noah departed, I shut the door behind him and exhaled a long, heavy sigh. The stillness of the house enveloped me, and with it came the profound understanding that I had finally returned to where I belonged. Following a lengthy journey from college, navigating through bustling buses and cacophonous train stations, I found myself in desperate need of shedding the weariness that clung to me. I resolved to make my way directly to the shower. The warm water cascaded over my skin, cleansing the remnants of my journey. After weeks of tension, a sense of calm began to wash over me for the first time. The semester had proven to be quite challenging. The weight of assignments, the ticking clock of deadlines, and the relentless pace of college existence. Yet, in that moment, as I stood beneath the cascading water, I allowed my shoulders to relax and released a long, deep breath. After the shower, I slipped into something effortless, embodying a casual grace. I tiptoed barefoot to my room, gently pushing the door open, allowing the comforting embrace of familiarity to envelop me. The familiar old posters clung to the walls, while the bed remained neatly made, adorned with my cherished patterned sheets. It felt as though I was transported to a different incarnation of who I am. Yet, another thought lingered in the shadows of my consciousness. My days had been consumed by the relentless demands of school and work, leaving little room for the nuances of a personal life. The closeness I once assumed would always be there had been absent for some time. Indeed, there had been encounters scattered throughout, yet none had blossomed into something substantial, nothing that felt genuine. In a shared dorm, where thin walls and inquisitive roommates abound, opportunities to unwind in such a manner were few and far between. As I settled onto my bed, the thought lingered in my mind. It transcended the mere necessity of companionship. It was a journey back to the essence of my being. I picked up my phone, my fingers gliding over the screen in a mindless scroll, yet it wasn't long before my thoughts drifted to distant realms. Reclining against the soft pillows, I allowed myself to simply relax, embracing a long-forgotten sense of calm. It was a primal urge, driven by the need to rediscover a bond rather than anything else. My fingers traced slow lines along my arms and shoulders, grounding me in the present moment. I exhaled deeply, letting go of the emotional weight I had carried for weeks, to reconnect and unwind after all that I had been enduring. A sudden knock on my door pulled me from my thoughts. My heart leaped into my throat, and I nearly cast my phone aside in a flurry of emotion. "Is that you, Ava?" From the other side, Noah's voice resonated. I swiftly composed myself, smoothing the fabric of my dress as I beckoned him to enter. Noah paused at the threshold, a moment of uncertainty washing over him before he finally crossed the threshold. It was evident that a weight rested upon his thoughts, his demeanor lacking the usual lightness that characterized him. He lingered in an uncomfortable silence before eventually perching on the edge of my bed, his fingers combing through his hair. Uncertainty clouded my mind regarding his desires, yet I sensed that whatever it was, it bore significance. Noah remained still at the outset, his restlessness evident as he grappled with the challenge of finding the right beginning. I remained quiet, allowing him the room he needed. At last, he started to speak, initially with hesitation, but then in a sudden rush. He shared with me the story of his girlfriend. From what I had previously gathered, I had assumed they were blissfully united, embodying one of those youthful, untroubled romances. Yet, beneath the surface, all was not as flawless as it appeared. Their battles raged on, fueled by both trivial matters and significant issues alike. He sensed that no matter what he accomplished, it would never be sufficient. She would become distressed over matters he was oblivious to, and the ensuing disputes left him utterly exhausted. He confessed to having feelings for her, yet he was uncertain if he could continue down this path. The relationship began to weigh heavily on my shoulders. As he spoke, I observed the profound transformation he had undergone. He had transformed from the boy I once playfully mocked. He possessed a newfound quiet maturity, a depth that had previously eluded my gaze. His shoulders had taken on a broader stance, and his face bore a more defined structure. He bore himself with a newfound confidence, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had accompanied me when I departed for college. I absorbed his words, my attention divided between his speech and the dawning realization I was having about him. He possessed an undeniable allure, a quality that rendered it difficult to avert one's gaze. He continued to speak, revealing more of himself than he ever had before. He admitted that the thought of ending their relationship had crossed his mind, yet he was uncertain if he possessed the courage to follow through. I yearned to offer him solace, to utter words that might lift his spirits, yet it felt as though words fell short. I followed the instinct that seemed most genuine to me. I drew closer, enveloping him in my embrace. It was not merely a hug born of courtesy or routine. It was genuine, a silent declaration of understanding, a promise that I stood by his side. As we lingered in that moment, my arms enveloping him, a subtle change stirred in the atmosphere. Whether it was the way he melted into my embrace or the comforting warmth that radiated from him, I couldn't quite tell. Yet, in an instant my senses sharpened, and he became the center of my attention. The gentle caress of his hair as it brushed against my cheek, the delicate whisper of his cologne lingered in the air. As his breathing gradually slowed, a sense of calm enveloped him. My hand, almost instinctively, found its way to his hair, sweeping it back with a tender touch. It felt gentle beneath my touch, and I found myself following the contour of his jaw, then gliding down to his neck. What began as a simple act carried an unexpected weight. He seemed to melt further beneath my touch, leaning into it just a fraction more. My thoughts were a whirlwind, caught in a struggle between my current actions and the path I ought to take. Uncertainty lingered within me, a question echoing in the depths of my mind. Why did I persist, refusing to retreat? Perhaps it was the manner in which he anchored my emotions. Perhaps it was merely the surge of feelings that accompanied the moment. No matter what it was, I found myself unable to halt my course. It's as if the choice slipped through my fingers, leaving no trace of its making. Yet, there came a moment when I grasped his hand, guiding it gently to rest upon my leg. It was a spontaneous decision, the sort of action taken before the mind has a chance to intervene. In that instant, I sensed him stiffen, unmistakably taken by surprise. Yet, his hand found its resting place exactly where I had positioned it. His hesitation was palpable, yet beneath it lay a spark of curiosity. His hand radiated warmth, the touch hesitant initially, as if he were caught in a delicate balance between the urge to advance and the instinct to remain motionless. Gently, he placed his hand on my leg, a quiet gesture filled with uncertainty and tension. My heart raced within my chest, and I sensed the warmth surging beneath my skin. Uncertainty loomed over the path ahead, yet I found myself unable to halt its course. Every nerve in my being was electrified, reacting to his touch with a fervor I hadn't experienced in ages. We lingered in that moment, suspended in time, as if eternity had wrapped around us. His hand glided softly, discovering. As I nestled against him, my face tucked into the curve of his neck. My body leaned into his presence instinctively, responding to the closeness between us, responding to each subtle motion he executed. Just when the atmosphere seemed to reach its peak, the sudden creak of the front door swinging open broke the stillness. I recoiled with such swiftness it felt as though I had been singed, distancing myself from him and hastily rearranging my dress. My heart raced, but this time it was fueled by panic. Noah appeared equally flustered, his face flushed as he hurriedly retreated, creating space between us. Before I could even catch my breath, my parents' voices echoed through the house, calling out to me. They expressed a whirlwind of emotions, excitement, worry, and relief, intertwined in a single moment. I compelled myself to rise and extend a greeting, my thoughts still whirling from the recent events. They embraced me warmly, bombarding me with countless inquiries about why I hadn't given them a heads-up about my arrival. I whispered a vague notion of wanting to surprise them, striving to maintain an air of normalcy. Yet, as we gathered around the dinner table, sharing laughter and stories, my thoughts continually wandered back to that fleeting moment in my room. The memory of Noah's touch lingered in my mind, igniting a cascade of sensations that my body had eagerly embraced. Could it be that he was pondering the same thing? The remainder of the evening unfolded in a haze. I engaged in the familiar dance of conversation, exchanging laughter and stories, yet my thoughts wandered far beyond the present moment. My mind continually returned to the events that unfolded with Noah. The memory lingered, the warmth of his hand, the response of my body, the palpable electricity that crackled in the air between us. The experience lingered in my mind, vibrant and undeniable, refusing to fade despite my efforts to dismiss it. Even after I retired for the night, slumber eluded me. I writhed in restlessness, my mind a tempest, cycling through memories in an endless loop. The gaze he had cast upon me just before we separated, the gentle caress of his hand, the sensation of being so near to him. The weight of it all was overwhelming, a torrent of thoughts and emotions that surged beyond comprehension. What thoughts occupied his mind? Did he feel as unsettled by it as I did? The following day proved to be even more challenging. Encountering Noah throughout the house, brushing past him in the hallway, a peculiar tension hung in the air between us. It wasn't precisely uncomfortable, yet it held an air of distinctiveness. We were both acutely aware of the events that had transpired, yet we found ourselves at a loss for how to address it, unsure of how to navigate our interactions in this new reality. I found myself stealing fleeting glances at him, observing subtle details that had previously escaped my notice. The tension in his jawline as he delved into contemplation, the gentle cascade of his hair across his forehead, the fluidity of his movements. Each time our paths intertwined, my heart raced just a bit faster, and I caught myself analyzing every moment we shared. Did he perceive the gaze I cast upon him? Did he sense the same allure that I experienced? Or was he merely attempting to erase it from his memory, striving to carry on as if nothing had transpired? I attempted to divert my attention, yet nothing appeared to be effective. My parents occupied themselves with their own pursuits throughout the day, granting me an abundance of time to ponder. I found myself trapped in the echoes of that moment within my room, envisioning the myriad of paths it might have taken, each one diverging from the reality I knew. What if the door had remained closed, lingering in its silence, when it finally chose to yield? What if we had continued on our path? The inquiries seemed to stretch infinitely, only serving to heighten my unease. That evening, my father entered the living room, where I sat, lost in the endless scroll of my phone. He expressed his regrets, explaining that he and my mom needed to step out for the evening to attend to some errands. He experienced a twinge of guilt at the thought of leaving me by myself, particularly after my recent return, Yet I brushed it aside with a casual wave, assuring him it was perfectly all right. The moment they departed, an unsettling silence enveloped the house. It was merely Noah and I, and the stillness appeared to magnify each subtle sound. I attempted to concentrate on various activities, be it reading or watching television, yet my mind continued to wander aimlessly. The silence deepened the tension, allowing my thoughts to drift back to the sensation of his hand resting on my leg. The sensation that enveloped me when we were so near. The inception of the idea eludes my memory, yet once it took root in my mind, it became an undeniable presence, impossible to overlook. I attempted to reason my way out of it. I attempted to engage in a dialogue with my own thoughts, yet the allure proved overwhelmingly powerful. The recollection of yesterday lingered, sharp and bright, while the allure of what might unfold if I allowed myself to proceed this time was irresistibly enticing. The hour had grown late by the time I reached a decision. The house lay shrouded in darkness, enveloped in a profound silence, where the delicate whisper of Noah's breath drifted through the fragile walls. With each step toward his room, my heart raced, my bare feet gliding silently over the smooth hardwood floor. As I pushed the door ajar, my gaze fell upon him, sprawled on his side, his back turned toward me. He appeared serene, his breaths measured and calm beneath the gentle illumination of the nightlight. For a fleeting moment, I found myself rooted in place, observing him intently, grappling with the decision of whether I would truly follow through with this. Yet, I felt an irresistible pull, my feet guiding me toward his bed before I could muster the words to dissuade myself. I eased myself next to him, taking great care not to disturb his slumber initially. The mattress creaked softly beneath me, and the comforting heat of his presence enveloped me, a gentle reminder of our closeness. Initially, I found myself lying still, attuned to the rhythm of his breath, sensing the gentle rise and fall of his chest. Yet, as time stretched on, I found my own breath growing increasingly rapid. I found myself unable to resist the urge to extend my hand, letting it brush against his arm gently, as if to gauge the atmosphere between us. Before long, he began to stir, his breath shifting as the veil of sleep started to lift. He turned onto his back, eyes fluttering open in bewilderment as he became aware of my presence. His expression was a canvas of surprise, eyes widening as he absorbed the unfolding scene. I denied him the opportunity to voice his inquiries or objections. I extended my hand towards his, leading it to my leg just as I had done the previous day. He paused briefly, his muscles tightening beneath my fingers. Yet he surrendered, allowing me to take the reins. The ensuing moments unfolded in a haze. My senses sharpened to the world around me, the warmth of his hand, the tentative movement of his fingers at first, gradually gaining confidence as he settled into the moment. My heart raced, my skin tingled, and I found myself utterly immersed in the moment. It possessed a certain vulnerability, a rawness that rendered every experience profoundly authentic. It lacked perfection and polish, yet that was of no consequence. What held significance was the bond, the manner in which we appeared to grasp one another without uttering a sound, the way our forms flowed in harmony to this silent cadence. Despite the unfamiliarity of the situation, there was an inherent quality to it, a sense of correctness that eluded my ability to articulate. It felt as though we had traversed an unseen boundary, and retreat was no longer an option. In a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, I instinctively moved closer to him, narrowing the distance that separated us. My hand instinctively rested on his shoulder, and before he had the chance to react, I leaned in, letting our foreheads touch in a moment of vulnerable connection. It was not marked by uncertainty or doubt. Rather, it was audacious, brimming with the palpable tension that had been simmering between us. I nudged him softly yet decisively, my hands resting on his shoulders as I guided him back until he reclined beneath me. I sensed the subtle change in his form as he surrendered to the mattress, his hands naturally seeking the curve of my waist. I moved closer, our knees touching as I looked into his eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of the moment and the sensation of being there, elevated above him, with every inch of our bodies in such close proximity was nearly intoxicating. The kiss deepened, evolving into a rhythm that was slower, more intentional. His hands tightened slightly around my waist, a subtle indication of his effort to ground himself, as if the intensity of the moment was nearly overwhelming. My hands ascended to his face, delicately framing it as my thumbs glided over the roughness of his jawline. His skin radiated warmth, and the sensation of his stubble brushing against my fingertips sent a delightful flutter through my stomach. I tilted my head, shifting the angle of our kiss as his lips parted ever so slightly. The slightest movement sent a tremor through me, and I found myself leaning closer, allowing the full weight of my body to rest against his. I embraced the moment, dictating the tempo, commanding the flow, and it was exhilarating to surrender to that sense of authority, that mastery. There was an undeniable closeness in being atop him, sensing the rhythm of his heartbeat against my own, his hands gripping me as if he wished for the moment to last forever. Our breaths deepened, harmonizing with the rhythm of our lips as they met. Occasionally, I would draw back just enough to gaze at him, his eyes half closed, lips a touch swollen from our kiss, his chest heaving as if he struggled to regain his breath. It was among the most exquisite sights I had ever encountered, and in those fleeting moments when he gazed at me, as if I were the sole treasure in existence, my heart swelled with an overwhelming intensity. I bent closer, my lips brushing against his jawline, gliding over his cheek, teasing the corner of his mouth before finally capturing his lips once more. Every kiss held its own essence. Some were swift and playful, while others unfolded slowly, as if we were relishing the bond between us. His hands rested gently on my back, as if anchoring himself in the moment, but it was neither hurried nor aggressive. It felt as though he was allowing me to take the lead, placing his trust in me to establish the rhythm, which only intensified my desire for him. Perched above him, I felt an undeniable sense of belonging, as if this moment was precisely where fate intended me to be. I adored how his body responded to mine, the subtle movements beneath me, as if he were striving to bridge the gap between us, despite the closeness we already shared. I experienced a profound sense of strength intertwined with vulnerability, a delicate balance of being fully in command while simultaneously allowing myself to be entirely receptive to him. If only he were aware of the depths of my desire for this. For so long, I had contemplated the moment of being atop him, of having him beneath me, finally allowing all that had been quietly brewing between us to erupt into something undeniable. The way his hands clasped my waist, the intensity of his gaze, utterly unhinged, ignited an even deeper desire within me. It transcended mere tension or attraction. It was the deep yearning to bridge the distance between us, to shatter every barrier that had previously confined us. Yet, just as the temperature began to rise, reality crashed down upon us with the force of a brick wall. As I bent closer and pressed my lips to his once more, my thoughts surged forward. This was the culmination, the defining instant. I yearned to delve deeper, to transcend the boundaries of mere kissing and touching. My body thrummed with longing, and his reacted to each subtle shift I made. I sensed it, I sensed him. In that moment, I took a brief pause, my voice steady yet soft, and inquired, "Do you have anything to share?" The expression on his face truly remarkable. Initially, there was a swirl of confusion, as if he struggled to grasp my meaning, soon giving way to a gradual understanding. He offered me a sheepish smile, his cheeks flushing to the softest hue of red. "Oh no, I never did, I couldn't fathom it." At the age of 18, he found himself in a relationship, yet his room lacked any condoms. I found myself gazing at him for a moment, caught between disbelief and a simmering exasperation. "Seriously, how can you not have anything at all?" A frustrated laugh escaped my lips as I shook my head, while he attempted to justify himself, murmuring something about how he hadn't anticipated this unfolding tonight. It possessed a charm that was utterly exasperating. "Really, Noah?" I remarked, a chuckle escaping my lips, though it was primarily to keep the atmosphere alive. What sort of partner is unprepared without protection readily available? He merely shrugged, an expression of utter helplessness crossing his face, tinged with a hint of apology. "I suppose I'm not as ready as I believed," he murmured, his voice tinged with apprehension. I let out a soft sigh, my head resting against his chest for a fleeting moment as I contemplated my next move. The truth was, I had no desire to cease. It was impossible for me to do so. I desired him intensely, and thus I resolved to change my approach. If he wasn't prepared, so be it. I would ensure this night lingered in his memory for all eternity. I moved to sit beside him, my presence calm and reassuring. The way his breath caught as I shifted my position ignited a flicker of confidence within me. His hands, previously settled on my waist, shifted subtly, uncertain of how to navigate this new turn in our interaction. I gazed up at him while positioning myself between his legs, my hands lightly grazing his knees before gliding up the contours of his thighs. His whole being coiled tight, as if preparing to withstand whatever fate had in store for him. His breath hitched once more, and I sensed his struggle to maintain composure, yet his body was revealing the truth of his turmoil. Each delicate touch, each subtle movement I executed elicited responses from him that he likely remained unaware of. His fingers intertwined with the bedsheets, his thighs tensed subtly beneath my touch, his chest heaved and sighed, a rhythm both profound and erratic. A smile crept onto my lips as I pressed my kiss against him once more, this time lower, sensing the tension in his body intensify with each subtle shift I made. His body reacted with such sensitivity, and I found it utterly captivating. I reveled in the power I held over him, the ability to elicit such profound reactions simply by being near him, by caressing him in just the right manner. A smile spread across my face as I rested my head against his chest, listening to the rhythm of his breath. His body radiated warmth beneath my fingertips, and with each subtle shift, another tremor coursed through him. It was mesmerizing to witness his unraveling in this way, fully aware that I was the catalyst behind it all. With each passing moment, I sensed him unwind further, his form sinking deeper into the mattress. As he released the tension that had gripped him, he began to flow in harmony with my movements. At first, it was a subtle movement, his hips shifting ever so slightly, while his hands eventually found their way back to my shoulders, as if he were seeking something to grasp. The rhythm of his breath, the soft murmurs escaping his lips, only ignited my resolve even more. I adored his sensitivity, how each small action of mine seemed to magnify his response. His body seemed to communicate with me, leading me in a quiet, instinctual manner. And, oh, how I relished it. I found it to be even more enjoyable than I had anticipated. The awareness of his enjoyment, the realization that he was entirely at my mercy, heightened the experience even further. At one moment, he released a low, nearly imperceptible groan, and it coursed a wave of warmth directly through me. I took a moment to gaze at him once more, his head reclined, lips gently parted, eyes shut as he surrendered to the experience. He appeared strikingly handsome, exuding a sense of total vulnerability and disarray. It merely fueled my desire to persist. As the come-down settled in, an unusual blend of emotions washed over me. The adrenaline had faded, yet the thrill in my chest lingered on. With deliberate slowness, I rose from the bed, the gravity of the situation settling heavily upon me. Uncertainty clouded my thoughts. A fragment of my being remained ensnared in the overwhelming intensity of it all. How vibrantly alive I had felt in that fleeting moment. I felt as though I were adrift in a bubble, a realm where nothing else held significance. Yet, as I stood there in the stillness, uncertainty began to creep in. I cast a fleeting look in his direction, where he remained sprawled, his chest gently rising and falling as he regained his breath. His eyes were shut, yet he appeared serene, satisfied, as if he had just undergone an overwhelming experience, one that transformed the atmosphere surrounding us. His body resonated with a lingering vibrancy. I could sense it. I cleared my throat, attempting to dispel the weight of the tension that hung in the air. "So," I remarked, attempting to maintain a nonchalant demeanor while my thoughts swirled in a frenzy. "Surely you have some experience, don't you?" He lifted his gaze at the inquiry, his eyes reflecting a blend of bewilderment and intrigue. In that fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of the change in his demeanor, as if he were caught in a dilemma between laughter and gravity. Yet, in an instant, he gave a decisive nod. "No," he said quietly, his voice gentle yet unwavering. I arched an eyebrow, scrutinizing him intently. A small wave of disbelief washed over me, and I found myself unable to articulate the reason behind it. I found myself grappling with the events that had just unfolded, and now this new development emerged. It felt as though I had anticipated a different person entirely. The burden of it. I refrained from uttering anything further. I pivoted and exited the room, my pace deliberate as I endeavored to collect my scattered thoughts. I sensed his movement behind me, yet I refrained from turning around. As I strolled down the corridor, the gravity of the recent events began to settle upon me. My body thrummed with vitality, a lingering echo of the experience, yet my mind spiraled in a tempest of guilt and uncertainty. What have I just done? It felt as though I had traversed an invisible line, a boundary I had been blissfully unaware of until that moment. The thrill, the joy, the bond. It all seemed so perfect in that fleeting instant, yet now a nauseating sensation took root in my gut. It seemed improper, yet undeniably perfect, in ways that eluded my understanding. It felt as though my body had seized control, as if every part of me yearned to plunge into that moment and release all thoughts of what might follow. Yet, with the fervor of the moment behind me, I found myself unable to cease the relentless replay of it in my thoughts. The intensity of his gaze upon me, the electric response of his body to my presence, the unwavering confidence with which he chose to follow my lead. The intensity of it all perhaps was what rendered the experience so extraordinary, so unlike anything I had ever encountered with another soul. I had never experienced such a vibrant energy with other men. It possessed a certain rawness, a visceral quality, leaving me uncertain whether it was right or wrong. I rested my back against the cool wall of the hallway, shutting my eyes in an attempt to navigate the surge of tension that enveloped me. The guilt gnawed at my insides, yet the remainder of my being thrummed with vitality. A part of me couldn't help but yearn to experience that sensation once more. In that moment, it dawned on me that I was in dire need of a fresh perspective. I found myself in need of a conversation, a moment to reflect on whether my actions were truly acceptable. Was it truly misguided? Should I feel remorse for it? I was unaware. At last, I made my way back to the room, my heart pounding, grappling with a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Yet, one certainty lingered in my mind. Tonight would remain etched in my memory. Regardless of my choices or the emotions that enveloped me in the end, it was destined to remain a part of me. In that moment, I found myself pondering, is this truly the right course of action? I was truly eager to discover. Surely, I couldn't be the only one who had experienced these feelings, could I? I posed the question, yearning for a glimmer of understanding from anyone, anywhere who might illuminate the path ahead. Some lines should never be crossed. But what happens when crossing that line feels more like returning to something you've hidden deep within yourself than doing something wrong? That night didn't just shake my world. It made me question everything I thought I knew about boundaries, desires, and control. Was I reclaiming a piece of myself? Or losing another? There are moments that come like whispers in the dark, quiet, fleeting, yet unforgettable. And now, I live with one truth. You can prepare for life, but you can never prepare for what you awaken in someone or in yourself. Have you ever crossed a line so quietly it felt like a whisper, not a scream? Let me know in the comments. Your story might be closer to mine than you think. Share your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and come back for the next jaw-dropping chapter of A True Infidelity Story.